From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now, or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
And we've returned. Yes, we are going to explore some possible explanations. One, misidentification. Easy. It's what you would call a low-hanging branch here. Misidentification is a lead cause for a ton of alleged cryptid sightings. As we found in the case of the Jersey Devil, or as we found in the case of Bigfoot, misidentification has been common for centuries and centuries. People get scared, their encounters are hurried, and they're brief, and when these people finally get to a calm, safe place, their memories are jumbled, and they've been heavily influenced by the fear they experienced, right?
Yep.
And, they might even smell something later, and then it triggers the memory, which changes the memory, because your memories change every time you remember them. True story. Scary stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this is weird. I was thinking about this, man. So while it might seem counterintuitive, misidentification is likely on the rise nowadays. It's a very good era for misidentification, despite the fact that there's such an abundance of surveillance and recording technology. The truth is, the majority of human beings now live in dense urban areas. The animal that you are most likely to see in your day-to-day life, every single day, it's another human being. That's the animal you will most commonly run into. And if you live in a dense urban area, you're less likely to be familiar with large, wild animals. Have you ever seen a bear in the wild? Have you ever seen a monkey? What if you saw one and you weren't expecting it? You'd freak out. You'd freak a little bit.
Yeah. Well, especially if that creature, that bear or that monkey, were maybe, let's say, a cub or a baby monkey or a young monkey that, or a bear, because either of them can and will stand on their hind legs at times. And if they're younger, they may be very small. And if you see a small creature like that, a real animal in the shadows, standing up on its hind legs with arms, it would freak me out if I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, I've enjoyed that description, because putting myself in the place, even being able to identify animals in the wild when you're not expecting it, it's a wallop.
Or even a raccoon, or I mean, there's so many
hands.
There's so many small creatures that have some of the features of a human if they happen to get into a certain posture.
Right. I gotta say, man, I love pretty much all animals. I'm glad they're here. Raccoons fascinate me, but they freak me out a little bit because there's something kind of uncanny valley about their hands. You know what I mean? They just look sneaky. And I'm always they look covetous,
Like a goblin.
Yes, maybe that's it. Maybe goblins and raccoons. But they also have these amazing parkour abilities. They're weird. Send your favorite raccoon stories. I'd love to hear them, but I'm going to read them during the daytime just in case. And it's safe to say then that at least in some sightings, people have accidentally misidentified an animal that they would have eventually recognized if they saw it in a more controlled environment, like a zoo, right? If they had had more time to observe it instead of this hurried, often terrifying and short encounter. But no matter what, misidentification cannot explain everything, primarily because wild animals, for what we know, tend to not wear hats.
For what we've seen.
From the data we have gathered, hats haven't really gotten on the scene in the animal kingdom yet.
Yes, you're right. And I just have to add one last thing that could help out here. Keep the camera rolling after you've seen something like that. Don't cut. Just get all the raw footage you can. Chase the thing with your camera. Zoom in. Turn up the brightness. Lower the contrast. Do everything you can in that moment. If you ever encounter one, and then upload the whole file. Don't edit it.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. And try just 720p or higher, please, for God's sake.
I know. I feel your pain, man. This leads us to the second thing. Why is what Matt's saying so important? Well, it's because if you find yourself in a situation like this and you're trying to film, not taking those steps will set you up to be accused of hoaxing. And that is the second common explanation for a lot of cryptid sightings. It's unfortunately frequent, and like cases of misidentification, hoaxes have been on the rise for some time. It's easier now than ever before to fake something. You can alter video, you can distort, remove, insert things. You can also, like, Matt, you can control angles, lighting, setting. You can do pretty much whatever you want to video, so long as you have enough expertise and lead time. Like I think that's why you're emphasizing that. How come this just happens and then they stop rolling?
Yeah.
To me, one of the questions that always pops up is, why would someone purposely create a hoax Duende sighting? Well, number one, for attention, for laughs, for the lulz, for trolling. If we look at the video from Argentina, it was funny because this got a lot of international attention when it was reported by The Sun, which is kind of like the United Kingdom's weekly world news.
Yes.
It's the closest they'll get to like Bat Boy stories.
And this is the gnome sighting from Argentina, correct? The
Yes.
sidestepper? Okay.
Yeah. Here comes the sidestepper.
Yes.
So the teenager who filmed this is interviewed in The Sun. His name is Jose Alvarez. And he says, me and my pals are just hanging out on the sidewalk, 1 a.m. And then we hear a noise, and it sounds like someone throwing stones. And Snopes is really snarky when they report on this. You can find the Snopes write-up on this. And they say Alvarez, who had miraculously started filming nothing in particular with his cell phone immediately beforehand, was able to capture a few seconds worth of video of something that looks like, just as you described, Matt, a tiny biped with a pointy hat doing the rambling man, just a few steps sideways. And then he says...
by the way, this is very common, that exact scenario. Oh, man, just happened to start filming. Hey, what are you guys doing? Nothing. Oh, just hanging out. Okay, cool. Yeah,
and then all of a sudden, squeak!
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
That was funnier on video.
No, the video's great. I hope that makes it onto our YouTube channel.
Who knows? It's above us. So Alvarez is saying, okay, at first we thought this was a dog, but we saw it was gnome-like, and we began to get really afraid. This is not a joke. We're still afraid to go out. Everybody in the neighborhood is. One of my friends was so scared after seeing that thing that we had to take him to the hospital. And Snopes notes exactly what you noted earlier, Matt, that this has a classic hoax setup. A sudden appearance of something in the background right after rolling. The person with the camera is able to find and zoom in on the thing really quickly, even though it's unexpected. The glimpse of whatever this thing is very, very brief. And then Snopes also points out there were two different takes of the same scene that make, that call into question the spontaneity of it. So with that in mind, just from that one example and the format that we see in these other YouTube videos, it's highly likely, I would say it's virtually certain, that some video footage of these Duende sightings are indeed purposeful hoaxes, which sounds like a downer, but there's one more possible explanation. It is, I think it's safe to say, it's always our personal favorite.
Yes. And we're going to talk about, but really quickly, I want to mention one more Duende video that was very popular. I'm looking for it right now very quickly. It was shot by a mother who just happened to be filming her small child in the kitchen, doing nothing. Kids doing absolutely nothing. All of a sudden, the kid's head moves away a little bit, and a tiny, tiny little, looks like a human, a regular-sized human that got shrunk down into a tiny little version that's only a foot tall or smaller, just runs across from where the baby's head moved and runs underneath a shelf or something that's right, a cabinet. It's just another one of these videos that follows those exact rules that Snopes pointed out. But in this case, you can clearly see the creature. and it looks like a tiny little goblin running. But again, it looks like a full-sized human in a costume or something that's just been shrunk down through video editing, honestly. That's what it looks like. I can't sit here and tell you 100% that it was hoaxed, but I can tell you 99.9% that it was hoaxed.
There we go. It's more than fair. So with that, we've done a lot of myth busting here, but with that, we want to go to our favorite of these categories, which is cryptids. What if the Duende sightings can be partially attributed to a real, not yet officially identified animal? If so, what could it be? Based on the descriptions, the most likely suspect would be a small primate, and if it is indeed a cryptid, it would be a small primate currently unknown to science. The height makes sense, as do the reports being hirsute or hairy. The humanoid body also makes sense. Non-human primates have the same number of arms and legs, and a tail could be difficult to spot depending on the environment. And again, all the videos are in the dark. But there's a counterpoint here. Given the sheer number of readily available video recording devices, why hasn't someone caught clear, undeniable footage of these creatures? Why isn't there like duende during the day? Is it because these are nocturnal creatures? That's possible. But again, cameras are everywhere. And given that humans have lived in the area for such a long time, why hasn't anyone come forward with a body or some sort of physical evidence? I propose we start calling this the Bigfoot dilemma.
The Littlefoot dilemma.
The Littlefoot, yes. Yeah, good note. Good note. We're going with it. The Littlefoot dilemma. So this means that if we're looking for rational explanations, we can find several. Hoaxes have to account for some sightings. Misidentification has to account for some others. And while the idea of unrecognized animals is tremendously exciting, there's just not enough evidence to support that idea in this case yet. And furthermore, the odds are mounting that if something like this existed and was an unknown animal, it would already have been well known to locals, like in the case of the coelacanth, when people thought they rediscovered this fish that had been extinct for millions of years, and the locals said, "Oh, yeah, that's a trash fish. Don't eat it. That is garbage fish. Put it back."
Yeah, it's really old. That meat is no good anymore. The only problem here, Ben, to my mind, when we're talking about misidentification, is that we're talking about a large area or a large variety of areas of the earth that are covered when we're talking about Duende sightings, in very different ecosystems and climates. And it makes me wonder if, could there be a common denominator here, or is it just different species of animals in different parts of the world?
For example, Belize is home to different species of non-human primates. Spider monkeys, howler monkeys. You know what I mean? Cool monkeys. You want cool monkeys? Belize.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a perfect explanation. Again, because of that hat. That hat drove me crazy.
But see, spider monkeys might just be really shy about their hat wear. And maybe that's something that they're developing,
Oh, that's heartbreaking. So like they were amping themselves up. And they were like, all right, this is going to be big for me. I'm going to try out my new look, my hat. And then the first time they see somebody, the people are screaming. And the spider monkey's like, they hate my hat. Yes. Yes. I think you solved it, Matt. There's something we had in our notes that helps support this idea. If you look at the photo of a spider monkey now.
Ben has provided one, by the way. So I'm looking at that
now.
It's...
Oh, I didn't take the photo personally, but it's important to know what they look like.
Yeah.
I'm just going to, if you're playing along at home, folks, pull up a picture of a spider monkey and let's just read that second description one more time. 3 to 4 foot tall with heavy shoulders, long arms, brown hair, a flat yellowish face, and long hair down the back and the neck.
Wow.
I believe this is a juvenile spider monkey, but you see where I'm going with this, man?
Yeah, I can fully see it. The facial expression of a primate like this, man, you could totally see how, if you saw that creature in the shadows, in the dark, didn't expect it to be there, it could freak you out. And you could see why, that sighting would be considered a duende. If you didn't hear the specific noises, you didn't capture them on video or something or on audio, yeah, I mean that's a duende sighting for sure, just waiting to happen.
Right. And then, of course, if you realize that the majority of wild animals are going to be freaked out when they run into you as a person, then that explains the brevity of the encounter.
Well, and also why they might hide. Like if they are somewhat in plain sight or nearby, they may be hiding and hoping that you go away. And if you encroach further on their area, they might stand up or get up and scurry away really quickly. Again, very similar to the sightings we've seen or heard about.
Yeah, and then last but not least, there is the distant but not entirely dismissible possibility that there could be a human being involved, someone who perhaps has a medical condition resulting in a smaller than average height. That's possible, but there's no confirmation of this. And for our final notes here, we have to say that local belief in duendes varies widely. For many, it's, like we said, a Mothman kind of vibe. It's sort of an in-joke about town. It's a piece of regional folklore people find amusing and at times profitable, but it's not something people take seriously. It's kid stuff, But in other regions, sightings of creatures like duende have apparently been taken seriously enough to warrant some reports by police. It was tough to confirm some of that, but it does show that there is a gamut here. And that's where the mystery stands. So thanks again, Pedro, for the suggestion. We would love to hear cryptid stories from your neck of the global woods.